Genealogy consists in tracing back a family history with a family tree containing all your lineage, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, etc., and beyond that, a whole family tree with uncles, aunts, and cousins. Genealogy helps place an individual in a hereditary chain of descent. Historically, it allowed the ruling classes to prove that they were the sons and daughters of kings or emperors. A few decades ago, the aim was to prove that you could inherit a property or various family assets, like a business, for instance. Nowadays, finding one's roots is of the essence, especially where one's family is from. After multiple waves of immigration, people are indeed asking questions about their ancestry, about their genetic, historical, and cultural heritage. What is happening to genealogy is similar to what happened with Web 2.0 20 years ago. At the time, Tim O'Reilly wrote a seminal article where he compared the first generation of websites with a new breed of websites that were about to flood the internet. There were profound changes like the advent of platform strategy, online collaboration, all these sort of things that changed the web that we are still using today. I think that we are going through a similar transformation with genealogy. What I mean by that is that genealogists are no longer those bookworms that spend their time with their heads buried in red tape and small-town parish birth records. This period is over. Today, every one of us can become an amateur genealogist using a computer or a mobile phone. You can build your tree with online software, proper platforms like MyHeritage. One can hook up to online archives. Most countries offer access to their historical records, and you may even take a DNA test on your own and find out about these distant cousins on the internet. Most people are asking questions about their ancestry at some point in their lives, the passing away of a loved one, for instance. As far as I'm concerned, when my grandparents passed away, I came across dozens of cousins at their funeral I'd never heard of before, for they were living abroad. That gave me the idea of building my family tree to keep a trace of that. We all ask ourselves the same questions one day or another. What's my ancestry like? Where are they from? What was their occupation? What is my cultural heritage? What should I do to honor their memories? Who were my ancestors within a lineage that spans over decades? All these questions are easily answered today. It's so simple with the help of online software. This book isn't meant for expert genealogists with years of field experience. It's aimed at all the budding genealogists. I was one of them 30 years ago. I set out to work on building various family trees as a pastime, and then I realized that many people were running into difficulties while maintaining their own trees. Many of their family trees had no shape or form. I've seen some good or not so good things in their attempts at building a proper family tree. Some of them were putting children where parents were meant to be. Some names were duplicated or even repeated 3 times, and you could find the same person in several places. I've also seen family trees with dates that didn't match, hence this Genealogy 2.0 book. I aim to support beginners with their genealogy efforts. Once they have overcome this first hurdle, chances are they will want to take it further. My aim is to help such new users get to grips with online databases and online archives. It's pretty straightforward once you've grasped the mechanism behind all this, yet beginners need some help to avoid the most common mistakes. I also intend to help budding genealogists with the use of data provided by the latest technological advances like DNA sequencing. Such technologies are extremely powerful, but their results aren't always easy to use. That's why I aim to support beginners and help them avoid those common mistakes we've all made before them. Family trees can be made with paper and pencils, as it was in the past. If your tree only has a few levels of ancestry, like parents, grandparents, for instance, it would even fit on an A4 sheet of paper. But if you want to go back 4 or 5 generations, then it's a different kettle of fish. Adding complementary information like the dates of birth and death and birthplaces, your page will be crammed with data. You will then need a more powerful tool to manage your family tree, and that tool is a piece of genealogy software. Originally, genealogy software had to be installed on your personal computer. Such standalone software still exists. It makes it possible to manage family trees in a fully secure manner on your PC. Yet, for the past 20 years or so, there has been a new breed of genealogy software available as software as a service. It also enables to work collaboratively on one's family tree. While creating one's family tree and registering the 3rd, 4th or 5th generation, the software sends you a notification stating that your great-great-grandfather was found in someone else's family tree. It's a sign that this other user must be a distant cousin of yours, and the software helps you get in touch with her or him, and it helps match the data between these two trees. This is taking genealogy a step beyond what one used to do in the past. You are no longer alone behind your computer. Should you use to download some genealogy software to your PC, your data would be safely kept on your hard drive. It could not be exported nor shared with anyone else, but if you want to collaborate with others, features such as data matching with online databases is going to be useful. I'm mainly referring to MyHeritage, which enables you to synchronize your family tree with data coming from the historical records from various countries. Let's mention the US immigration records, or the Canadian census records, or the BMD archive in the UK, or the USA cemetery records on American battlefields. This is typically the kind of data that is not available on your computer. But online genealogy platforms will provide access to all that information. Most genealogy software, be it on your PC or online, will let you build a small family tree for free for up to 30 to 50 people. This is sufficient for you to get the hang of it. Nonetheless, if you want to expand your tree beyond this number, or use the more advanced features, upgrading to premium is a must. It doesn't cost that much as a rule. For a standalone piece of software, a standard license will cost anything between 30 and 50 euros. And this is a one-time fee. For online platforms, on the other hand, there is an annual subscription fee worth a few dozen euros. The premium version of MyHeritage will cost you 109 or 189 euros. It's well worth the price if you want to carry out an in-depth genealogical projects. Migrating an existing tree from one software to another results to a standard Exchange file format called JEDCOM. This file format was developed by the Mormons, also known as the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The Mormon community is mainly established in Utah in the United States, whose capital city is Salt Lake City. Their religious practice involves a number of commandments regarding the members' ancestry. Members are requested to remember their past, honoring them. They must reconnect with their ancestors' past. Thus, they launched a huge campaign to collect data from databases from various national records from all over the world. In particular, they have signed agreements with some countries to obtain the data from death certificates. They developed a great tool called Family Search, which allows you to search their databases, starting from a family name and finding all the ancestors of people with the same name. The JEDCOM format was developed so that you can change genealogy software without the need for copying and rekeying your data. There are a number of rumors and legends about the Mormons who own a huge amount of data about us, collected and stored in databases in secret places that would enable them, possibly, to manipulate us. We need to set the record straight there. The work carried out by the Mormons serves humanity. They archive the data which some nations may have had difficulty to come to terms with. They have collected and preserved millions of records which are stored in a safe place to preserve the quality of their microfilm documents. They launched this humongous digital data migration project for the common good. In reality, their efforts are beneficial to humanity as a whole. They do not aim to serve their own obscure interests. We need to look at Mormons as the people who have modernized genealogy and enabled us to take it to the next level. Above all, please don't confuse Mormons and the Amish communities. They're very different. For several years now, DNA sequencing has revolutionized genealogy. All members of the human species have more or less the same DNA. The minor part of the DNA that sets us apart is used to encode a certain number of hereditary characteristics, such as eye color, the ability to assimilate more or less certain enzymes like lactase. We inherit these DNAs from our parents through a process that I describe in the book, but is in fact known to all. DNA consists in 23 pairs of chromosomes. We each inherit, for each pair, a portion of the chromosomes of our father and mother, 50% from each. And so it goes. There's something magical about DNA. What is fabulous in the end is that we all end up inheriting 50% of our father's genetic capital and 50% of our mother's, 25% of our grandparents, 12.5% of our great-grandparents, and so on, across all generations, and the same goes for children. So, if we go up and down our family tree, we come to the conclusion that we can easily find cousins, great-grandcousins, and so on and so forth, just by comparing the percentage of DNA that we have in common. This is the approach chosen by platforms such as 23andme.com or MyHeritage, offering DNA testing kits for €12, and the process is very straightforward. You don't need any blood sample, no need to collect your hair. All you need is a small cotton bud that you slip inside your mouth to collect a little saliva. You then put it into a small bottle, ship it to the laboratory, and then 3 or 4 weeks later, the report will be sent with all the data related to the part of the population to which we belong, either Caucasian or North African or Southeast Asian, etc. You may also choose to protect your personal data and decide not to share your DNA with anybody. But if you do share it, the process will lead to a comparison of this fragment of DNA coding with other users' DNA data who have opted in to share their data as well. So, if you find people with 2%, 3% or 6% DNA in common, they must be your distant cousins on another continent, even though you had no idea that it ever existed. DNA sequencing is somewhat fascinating. Genealogists from the last century would probably have dreamed to use this type of technology. It is indeed magical. It's extremely powerful, but there are a number of risks associated with it. Risk number one is a family risk. The reason you may never have heard of these distant cousins of yours could be due to a long-forgotten family feud. If they are so far apart, it may also mean they don't want to have anything to do with you. Reuniting with them might spark a squabble. It might be advisable to let sleeping dogs lie. After all, you don't know these people at all. You also run the risk of bumping into a part of the family you didn't even know. Maybe that ancestor of yours has had a secret love affair with someone outside your family circle. It may not cause trouble, but you never know. Such stories are rather risky. There is worse, though. Firstly, there may be a ban on DNA testing in your country. In France, for instance, you could be fined €3,750 for this. Those who were caught red-handed were few and far between, though. It has made the distribution of kits far more difficult in this country. Another kind of risk I'd like to highlight is a much more serious issue for European users. Companies such as 23andMe or MyHeritage are based outside the EU. By acquiring the genetic heritage from certain populations from other countries, they gain access to the DNA map of the people living in foreign countries, notwithstanding EU data protection regulations. With advances in genetic engineering, one could imagine that one day all this information could be used for wrongdoing by some mean-spirited individuals wanting to spread a virus aimed at a certain part of the population, with certain genetic characteristics, for instance. This may sound like bad science fiction, however, one should remember that DNA sequencing sounded like science fiction to barely 20 to 25 years ago. It was deemed impossible by many, yet a DNA test only takes a few minutes nowadays. Last but not least, such companies like 23andMe pledge to store your DNA data in a very secure way, and yet there have already been vulnerabilities in their security systems, and they have undergone data leakages a few years ago. One final thing. There is one more issue associated with DNA. By identifying genetic traits of the populations via a certain number of individuals going way back up in their ancestry, one could very well identify portions of populations with a certain type of genes or belonging to a certain ethnical group. One could well imagine what a dictatorship could do with that kind of data. Such non-democratic governments could target these individuals very easily. As you can see, DNA makes genealogy reach new highs, but it also takes us through the black mirror. Alongside these issues I've highlighted with DNA, I should add that there are more concerns about data privacy one should tackle when building one's family tree, when using collaborative software. The data within your tree is entirely private. It is therefore not advisable to supply more information than necessary, and one should understand data privacy mechanisms linked to that kind of software. Avoid storing people's home addresses on these genealogy platforms. It may sound straightforward, but in fact, many users overlook this, and such addresses are shared unbeknownst to the people concerned. It is rather commonplace to find photos of living people too. Finding photos of ancestors is fine, but when it comes to living people, you should obtain their consent prior to publication. Besides, your DNA data is yours, but its publication also impacts your whole family. As soon as you make your DNA data accessible to platforms or individuals, you make your DNA or part of it accessible to many individuals. Your loved ones and your more distant family. Keep this in mind. It can encourage people to behave against the interest of those you would like to protect. In a nutshell, genealogy is a captivating pastime, which is being transformed by technology. Its possibilities are endless, but you should remain cautious. I am optimistic with regard to the future of genealogy. It makes it possible through research, at the touch of a button, to recreate one's own family tree. At the end of the day, it shows us that each individual results in the intermingling of many different families, of many different people, whose existence we've forgotten. Such people from all origins remind us every step of the way that we are all members of a single large family, a family called humanity.